Welcome in, everybody, to the inaugural episode of the Dragon's Hollow Paranormal Encounters, where we do paranormal reactions, as well as cold case stuff. We'll do probably too, some UFO stuff, whatever. Within that scope is what we're going to do. This is going to be a work in progress, as I've done music reactions, but this type of stuff is a little bit different. So we are going to approach it that way. Without negative feedback. If there's anything that you would like for me to add to the channel or take away, feel free to drop that in the comments. This is going to be from a skeptic's point of view, as I am skeptic. I don't know. Real? Not real. I don't know. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to approach it with an open mind. Outside of that, I have a background in cinematography. I graduated from Full Sail University years ago for digital cinematography. Great. Second in my class. Trust me, that's not bragging. I am the last person to toot my own horn. So I will maybe bring some of that in to the conversation as well. Otherwise, we'll just kind of eyeball it and go from there. This is a long episode. This is 22 minutes and 58 seconds. I'm not going to hold this up too much. We're going to do the untold story of Robert Dahl, who is residing in Florida. I am aware of Robert Dahl. I have never seen him physically in person. I think I've seen one thing about him on the Travel Channel about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. And that's about it. So we're going to look at this untold story, see what we think of it. I'll kind of just let it run unless there's stuff I want to add into, then we'll pause it maybe. But other than that, we're just going to kind of let it do, and we'll add stuff when we need to add it. Otherwise, yeah. So let's do it. Oops, I hope this works out. So let's check it out together. All right, guys, let's do it. Let me make sure the volume is okay. Okay.
Can a soul, or the essence of an entity, become trapped inside of an object? Could one channeling enough energy, dedication, and care into something allow an otherworldly presence to possess it, attracting spirits like moths to a flame? We have covered haunted objects here before, such as Akiku the doll, among others. But this story is too infamous to not be given the time of day. And although it has been told many times, perhaps you will learn a detail or two that you've never heard before. This is the untold story of Robert the Doll and the malevolent monstrosity that stares at the world from behind its beady little eyes.
You guys believe? The link to this video will be in the description. Head over.
At first glance, most people tend to agree that although dolls of all sorts can be creepy to say the least, there's something particularly unnerving about the doll that has become known to the world as Robert. But behind the initial feelings of unease at first glance lies many tales of accidents, tragedy, and misfortune, all supposedly at Robert's hands. Far too many within his presence to just be a string of awful coincidences. But if an evil force supposedly lives within the confines of this century-old child's toy, to come to recognize and understand just what it could be, we must first tell its story. And to tell Robert's story properly, we must first start at the very beginning. As with many legends, there are multiple versions of the origin story and how Robert the Doll came to be. Having read through most, if not all of them, I'll be sharing with you the most agreed upon origin for accuracy's sake in the beginning, and we will explore other theories and origin stories later in this video.
Good way of going about things.
The year is 1904, and a man named Thomas Otto is on a trip in Germany. Whether it was for business or leisure, we can't say, but during his trip, he decided to pick up a gift for his young grandson's birthday to take back home with him to the States. As he perused various shops throughout his time there, he stumbled across a toy that he believed would be the perfect fit for the young boy. Perched on display behind a pale glass window sat a doll. The doll was about the size of a young child and was accompanied by a small dog doll as well. Knowing that his grandson was lonely on the large family estate and was very fond of dogs as well, Thomas believed he had found what he had been searching for and quickly purchased the toy. In due time, he would find his way back to the United States once his trip was over, bringing his precious cargo with him. Making his way back to the family estate located in Key West, Florida, to greet his family after months abroad, Thomas, in an act of innocence and excitement, gifted the toy to his grandson Eugene for his 8th birthday. As soon as Eugene laid eyes on the gift he had received, he became ecstatic. With no other children his own age in the home or nearby, he now for once had his very own friend, his own best friend, and one that could accompany him wherever he went. Sitting at around 3 feet tall with his little dog, Eugene named his new friend Robert. But Robert, of course, needed clothes to fit for years of adventures to come. So Eugene's mother, Maria, quickly found just what he was missing: a small sailor's outfit that had once belonged to her son, but had long since been outgrown. After placing Robert in his new clothes, the two were off to play and soon became inseparable. Wherever Eugene went, Robert accompanied him. From hours of play inside and outside of the house, to the dinner table and bedtime, his new best friend was everything the young man wanted, and much more. Besides constant companionship, Eugene began to confide in the doll, often speaking to him as if he was a person in his own right. His parents, who were first just as elated as their young son was at his excitement over his new toy, began to grow concerned over how close their son was to the doll. But they would initially write off the behavior, as most would, since lonely children with their imaginations still very much active will typically invent imaginary friends or adventurous stories to fill the void or lack of friends and real adventures within their daily lives. But over the months since Robert had arrived, they noticed a bizarre shift in Eugene's personality. He began to grow extremely possessive and obsessive over Robert, and would lash out at his parents, sometimes violently, if the doll was not in his sight at all times. It would soon appear that Eugene's obsession with his cloth companion and shift in behavior wasn't the only strange activity that was taking place. One night, as she tucked her son into bed, Maria overheard Eugene whispering to Robert, something that at this point had become a daily occurrence. But as she closed the door to his room and began to walk away, she heard a deep, guttural voice respond to her son. Shocked and terrified, she rushed back into her son's room, only to find him laying with the doll, as per usual. When she asked him just who was speaking, he simply answered, "Robert." This scary happening wouldn't be the last. About a year into Robert the doll inhabiting their Key West estate, the Ottos noticed yet another shift in their son's behavior. But this time, it was almost the exact opposite of what the initial shift had been. Eugene had gone from a quiet and shy but charming young man to a belligerent, angry, and possessive boy. But now he had become one that was meek, full of anxiety, and constantly seemed like he was walking on eggshells. He had now also taken to violent fits on occasion, as if something was trying to overtake his body and soul. The guttural voice that Maria had heard a year ago could be heard much more frequently now. In just as frequently, almost nightly, it became commonplace to hear what sounded like glass breaking and constant commotion coming from Eugene's room. Upon hearing the turmoil, his parents would rush to discover the source. Upon opening their son's door, they would find his furniture dumped upside down. Other toys of his would be smashed or in pieces. and Eugene would almost always be in the corner of the room in his bed, petrified, while Robert the doll would be in his usual space nearby. Upon asking just what had happened, they would be met with an all too familiar answer at this point. They would ask, just who did this, Eugene? And his answer would always be, Robert. Noticing the activity becoming more and more intense, and being a God-fearing woman herself, Maria was deeply disturbed by what was taking place in her home, and what was taking place to her family, particularly her son. Besides the nightly terror that now plagued them, she was very much disturbed by this guttural voice that she kept hearing. Knowing that her son had not yet matured, she knew that there was no way his voice could reach that deep level of tonality and malice that she often heard. At times, the voice would even shout and speak over Eugene, and unless he was exceptionally good at ventriloquism, something was horrifically wrong. It was as if the devil himself now occupied the walls of their home. Like a stain or a liquid, the presence had slowly seeped in and permeated throughout their lives. One night, as per usual, the family settles down to sleep as the clouds spiral and the moon now haunts the sky above them, gleaming down overhead. The family's peace is shattered by the horrific screams of their son and the echoes of the sounds of things being broken. Wide-eyed and terrified, Eugene's parents rush to their son's aid. Lantern in hand, the closer they get to his room, the louder the low and horrible voice becomes, and the louder the screams of Eugene become as well. The deep voice that had been growing louder suddenly was silent like the winter snow as hands touched the doorknob. Quickly overcoming their fear for the sake of their boy, the couple throw the door open to find their son huddled underneath his sheets. His room was almost completely destroyed. Most of his belongings were in pieces or tatters. From what was left of his toys, to his furniture, to even his clothes. Poor Eugene was shaking in the corner of his room, opposite his bed, and Robert, along with his beady-eyed companion, were in his bed, staring at them all, silently. By this point, Maria knew that whatever Robert was, or whatever inhabited him, was truly evil. But unsure of how to handle the situation, or what exactly they were dealing with, in a fit of rage, she grabbed the doll and rushed to the attic, casting Robert and his canine companion into the darkness above. This would remain his home until a better idea presented itself as to what to do with him. The low groans and screams and breaking ceased in Eugene's room, but would frequently be heard in the attic. With having such a large estate to care for, the family did have a team of servants to care for the property, but their loyal crew, having experienced the strangeness themselves, up and quit. The servants soon became a revolving door, with new faces almost always coming and going just as quickly as they started. Despite his banishment to the attic, alongside the occasional crashing sounds and yelling, the family said that they would also hear Robert walking around, the pitter-patter of his small feet often being heard, echoing all throughout the house,
Does he have feet?
especially at night, when he seemed to truly come alive.
I have a hard time believing that.
As the years passed, and despite all of the childhood trauma and fear inflicted on him by the demonic doll, unbeknownst to any rational mind, after his parents' passing, Eugene would choose to take Robert back into his possession as an adult. Perhaps he did this to ensure that Robert wouldn't inflict terror upon anyone else. Maybe he felt like he had the most experience dealing with him, and therefore he was the most equipped to handle anything that could possibly happen as a result of his presence. Eugene in his adult years became an artist and would later marry and have a family of his own. He kept Robert propped up in the window of his art studio, known as the turret room, which overlooked his front yard. Annette, Eugene's wife, was said to disapprove of Robert's presence in the house and demanded that he be gotten rid of or banished into the attic or basement. For a short time this took place, but naturally, Robert didn't take kindly to this and apparently began to make threats towards her by visiting her in her dreams and verbally telling Eugene that if he was not moved back, horrible things would happen to his family. So eventually, Robert was placed back in the turret room. Aside from this, I couldn't find any additional information on the happenings that took place during those years inside the home. I would hope and imagine that perhaps Robert had gone dormant during this time, especially since Eugene did eventually have children of his own, and hopefully didn't allow them to be compromised by having such a thing in the house. There were, however, reports of passerbys, school children and neighbors, feeling a strange presence when passing by the house on a daily basis. Others would say that they could see Robert move, but in the blink of an eye, he would be back to where he was sitting. Eugene Otto would continue to spend the rest of his life painting in the turret room with Robert the doll until his death in 1974. However, this bizarre legend does not stop with his death. Upon Eugene's passing, his family sold the house to a woman named Myrtle Reuter. Upon moving into the home, she noticed, sitting in the window of the turret room, was a small doll with a sailor's uniform.
It's so
she
unsettling.
Thought this to be strange, since the Otto family had not left any other belongings behind when they had moved. But regardless, she decided to keep it. Myrtle soon began to realize that there was something different about this doll. Upon house cleaning, she would typically notice that he moved around the room, seemingly by himself. At night, she would hear what she described as small footsteps all throughout the house. Guests who would visit her claimed too that Robert would move of his own volition, and that his blank expression would change to one of rage if anyone discussed him in a negative way. Myrtle would eventually reach out and speak with the widowed Annette Otto, who would confirm her worst fears, that something otherworldly inhabited Robert the doll. After dealing with his antics for years, she finally decided to reach out to a local museum and would donate Robert in 1994 to the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, where he remains today. But as with each previous relocation, his story does not end here either. Placed inside his own glass display for the public to see him each and every day, one would think that perhaps Robert's antics would cease. He was, of course, a natural source of curiosity and would be seen and admired by many people daily, but you would be very wrong. Staff at the museum have claimed to find Robert in various positions within his case, as if he was attempting to break out of it, or had been out of it prior, and had just re-entered it. The phantom footsteps, as previously claimed by all three families, has also been reported, as well as the doll's expression changing from neutral to nasty in an instant. The afflictions first started with the staff themselves, from horrible bouts of rare diseases to relationship breakdowns and marriage failures, as well as unique instances of psychosis. Over the years, the curse of Robert the doll began to take shape and become a well-known phenomena, but it would soon spread to many others besides the staff themselves. Many people, upon visiting Robert's exhibit, finding him strange to say the least, would often mock him, berate him, or just laugh at his appearance. Little did they know that they would be inviting the wrath of something otherworldly. Shortly after their visit, droves of people began to experience shockingly similar happenings to that of the staff, varying in intensity, almost as if their punishment was being tapered to fit their crimes. From less serious experiences, like paranormal activity beginning in their home, horrible luck, and job loss, to name a few, to much more serious experiences like exotic disease diagnosis, rare cancers, relationship disintegration, and others, car accidents, falls, and even untimely death. Eventually, a warning would be added to Robert's exhibit, explaining the alleged curse and the proper etiquette to approach him with, whether that's to observe or take a photo, as to not offend whoever or whatever inhabits the doll itself. Over the decades, an entire wall has been dedicated to the letters people have dropped off or sent the museum if they weren't able to come in person, begging for Robert's forgiveness, hoping to end whatever horrible situation they found themselves in after their visit. To this day, there are over 1,000 letters, with more continuing to be added each and every year. But could there be more to this legend? As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there is another origin story that could explain just what inhabits the doll and how it got there. I will also add several elements that I found interesting relating to the case itself. The alternative origin story says that a young woman of Bahamian descent gave Thomas Otto the doll as a retaliation for a misdeed.
That part I did know.
As to why this would have taken place is not known, but speculation has led many to believe that the girl, or perhaps a relative, had been a member of staff at some point or another at the family's Key West estate. The retaliation was that the doll had been imbued with a spirit that had been conjured using voodoo, and by trapping the entity within the doll, making it its vessel, it became aware of its surroundings and knew what it was sent there to do. Although with many details in this case, lots of details can't be corroborated due to the age of the story itself, but there are a few details that I managed to dig up that are interesting. The doll itself appears to have been manufactured by the Steiff Company, a German family company that was headed by German designer Richard Steiff, the original designer of the beloved teddy bear, and the original design of the doll in particular, and others that were similar to it, were not designed as toys, but rather stage props for the time. So it's hard to say if Robert was ever intended as a toy in the first place. The family tree of the Ottos also has conflicting information in regards to birth and death dates, as well as names. But I did my best to corroborate this information, and I'll be linking the info in the description below. Today, Robert continues to be on display, and his antics continue to persist. He seems to be just as powerful as he was all those years ago. The museum keeps a cataloged record of all ailments that have been reported as a result of offending him, for future reference. His reach also continues to expand as his legend grows and becomes more and more well known across the world. Robert the Doll has been the inspiration behind many books, movies, and podcasts, as well as a local legend in Florida. And this lesson truly applies to anyone and everyone. Have respect when you meet someone, because you never truly know who or what you could be dealing with.
It's true in any regards.
If you find yourself at the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, and you happen to come into contact with the entity known as Robert the Doll, be respectful, because if you're not, you may just pay the ultimate price. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do me a huge favor and like the video if you enjoyed watching it, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video wherever you can. All those things are huge, and they help me out so much more than you guys know. I would also like to thank DraftKings for sponsoring today's video.
Yeah, that was the untold story of Robert the Doll. Hopefully you enjoyed this reaction in this video. Like I said in the beginning, any request of any video stories, paranormal, cold case stuff, aliens, stuff like that, do feel free to drop those requests in the comment section. I will do them as I can, for free. I'm doing Patreon stuff or anything like that at this time. So do drop that below. The video will be in the description. Make sure you head over to the Mystery Archives YouTube and like it. So how are we feeling about it? Do you guys one, believe in the paranormal? And B, Robert the Doll? As many stories cannot be proven, there are things that you could easily explain away. There's a lot of mental health stuff that can do all sorts of stuff. Myself, I have a lot of mental health disorders. One being schizoaffective disorder. I've had hallucinations, delusions in the past, and they can be profound and can do a lot of stuff that you wouldn't think that it could do. So very easily, personality traits can shift. There could be manic episodes. There could be personality shifts due to the mental state. The kid flipping out when they took the doll away. Just like they were saying, imaginary friends. Child has none. You're taking what it has bonded with, right? Taking the paranormal out of it, it's not going to go well. Especially if they are having a mental health crisis. And at that time period, that stuff wasn't known at all. So now the voices that Lily here, maybe she thought she heard it and she didn't. We don't know. The pitter patter footsteps. I didn't see feet at first. So I thought they were just like little cushiony things. There seems to be some feet. I still have a hard time believing that you heard pitter patter footsteps. Maybe you heard something drop. Maybe you heard the wind and you're already on edge because you think what you think. It can be explained away. As far as the mass of people that are claiming everything, it's hysteria, right? There's been situations of people in, bulk loads doing something that's not really anything. But it catches on, it catches. Now, you could also say, where there's smoke, there's a fire. So maybe they are on something. Maybe there is something. And about all the bad things that happen to people after their meeting with Robert. Bad shit happens. It does. It doesn't mean that a doll has cursed you and that you're getting hit with all these things. Bad shit happens. My life's like a domino effect. I have bad stuff happen, and when I have bad stuff happen, it doesn't happen just one. I have a whole domino effect of stuff. So I could say that too. Doesn't mean it's the truth. It means that people are using their minds to try to blame something that they can for things going wrong in their life. Now, am I saying that it's not true? I don't know. I can tell you this much: if they believe it, it's very real to those people. But with this documentary, if there's other footage of Robert, real footage, do link it down in the comment section and me react to it, whatever, and we'll check it out as well. But I remain a skeptic on this. As far as how you could explain the paranormal in it, obviously a doll is not alive. The doll itself is not evil. It's not. It's a doll. However, I guess you could, if you believe in the paranormal, it could, through ritual and whatnot, have a portal placed upon it, right? A gateway. So it's been around for a long time. You know? Maybe there's money, demonic entities within Robert at any given time. Could also explain why it goes dormant sometimes. I don't know. I'm just trying to, play it even on both sides. But what's everybody's take? Do you think there is validity to the story? Or do you think it's, lack of a better term, bullshit? I'll leave that to you. Do let us know in the comment section, and for whatever you need from me as far as reaction stuff goes, and what you would like to see, what you would like to see me maybe improve on the channel. Thank you. I really hope that you guys enjoy this. I've been a bit nervous to be jumping into this stuff. Planning it for a while. Wasn't sure how, when, if I even should. And takeaway here, one more thing before we sign off here. If you happen, as he said, to make that trip, simply put, it's not bad advice. Show respect. Because if there's even a 1% chance that there is truth to it, that is not a situation you want to be in. And moreover, you should show everybody and everything respect. It's just freaking common decency, in my opinion. So do that. Thank you. Have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be when viewing this video. Thank you, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. Peace.